Let's get back to the historical context we were discussing in our previous episode. France, 1789. The country faces very difficult political and economic situation. The state of French finances is in dire straits, and French society remains divided due to various reasons. First of all, due to unfair separation of rights and obligations between free estates, the nobility, the clergy, and the commoners. When it comes to reforming of financial system of the country, there were several reform plans prepared by the Controllers General of Finances, or Ministers of Finances, as we call them nowadays. But nevertheless, one of the most important plans prepared by the Swiss banker Jacques Necker was refused, was simply rejected by the most privileged class of French society, namely the notables. Well, the king, Louis XVI, in order to undertake necessary measures and in order to prevent the impending crisis, decides to convene a special political body, the States General. This body is consisted of representatives from all three estates and is able to provide the necessary approval for significant reforms, of course, including the reform of the fiscal system of France. The States General was convened in Versailles with the inaugural session scheduled for May 5, 1789. When all the representatives got together, it was possible to see the big difference between the groups. The clergy wore their religious robes, the nobles were in fancy black silk suits and white feathered hats, and the commoners in the third estate had to wear simple black suits with tricorn hats. Louis XVI began the session with a speech reflecting on the reasons for calling the States General and expressing his hopes for their collaboration, proclaiming him to be the people's greatest friend. Necker delivered an extensive speech outlining the present financial circumstances and emphasized the imperative for the States General to approve new taxes as a crucial measure to rescue the nation. However, the point of contention arose when the delegates couldn't reach an agreement over the voting procedure. Initially, it was decided that they would stick to the method used in 1614, the last time the Estates General was convened. The method simply implies that each estate is allotted only one vote, so together they have 3 votes in total. What does that mean in practice? It means that the third estate could be simply outvoted by clergy and nobility. So that means that all their initiatives, all their concerns, all their dissatisfactions are simply not taken into consideration by the first 2 estates. So they advocate for method, for principle of voting by head. They have not slightly, but they have more delegates than the first 2 estates do. That's why they advocate for principle of voting by head, not by estates. And the clergy and nobility in particular are strongly opposed to such innovations. Well, the disputes between the delegates intensify the atmosphere in the States General. It's difficult to unambiguously state that Necker was sympathetic to the Third Estate, but the proposals he put forth included the very points the Third Estate delegates were pursuing. The first one: all initiatives related to taxation were to be voted by head, emphasizing a more democratic and proportional approach to decision-making. The second one: the need for eliminating tax exemptions assigned to the nobility and clergy, indicating a move toward a fairer distribution of the tax burden. And the third one: open admission to civil and military vacancies for every member of society, implying a desire for greater equality in access to positions and opportunities, including for members of the Third Estate. We may only assume that the measures proposed by Necker would have positive impact on public opinion, as well as it would help to calm tensions between the delegates from Third Estate. But nevertheless, the nobility's refusal to change the voting procedure and to to relinquish some of its privileges would escalate the situation out of control. Just in order to comprehend and simply understand the complaints and intentions of third estate, we may refer to the famous political pamphlet by Emmanuel Joseph Sieyes and to the lines that you must have probably heard in the past. What is the third estate? Everything. What has it been hitherto in the political order? Nothing. What does it desire to be? To become something. This pamphlet was issued half a year before the Estates General was convened. On June 17, 1789, Sieyes played a crucial role during the early stages of the French Revolution. On that day, he proposed a motion for the Third Estate to declare itself the National Assembly, asserting that it represented the vast majority, about 98% of the French population. On the same day, Jean Bailly, an astronomer, was elected the president of the newly formed National Assembly. All delegates agreed that the fiscal system was the primary subject to amendment. However, it was decided to retain all current taxes and exemptions until the new order is established. The king was informed about the initiatives of the Third Estate. His inner circle, including family advisors and ministers, put forward several plans, including military ones, in order to disband the newly established body. The king himself chose in favor of peaceful policy. He decided to convene a royal session during which he intended to reaffirm his authority by presenting a plan of concessions to the Third Estate. However, there was no official announcement published with the date of such session. When on 20th of June the National Assembly arrived at Versailles to participate in meeting with the king, it turned out that the doors of the Salle des États were closed and guarded by the royal soldiers. For commoners, that was a clear signal of the king's disrespect and disapproval of them as an autonomous authority. The leaders of the National Assembly decided that that was the highest time for bold movement. The delegates found shelter in the big building nearby that happened to be the tennis court. Feeling that their political existence is in danger, they made a promise known as the tennis court oath. They took an oath never to disband until the Constitution for France was established. On 23rd of June, the king finally decided to hold the royal session. Louis XVI arrived at the Palace of Versailles accompanied by soldiers. He recognized the existence of the National Assembly and accepted the principle that all taxes should be approved by the representatives of the country. However, he didn't endorse voting by head instead of voting by estate, which was a key demand of the Third Estate. When the king left the hall, the majority of the nobles and clergy members left with him. However, the delegates of the Third Estate chose to remain in their seats. When the master of ceremonies attempted to relay the king's command for them to disperse, Jean Bailly, the Parisian astronomer and the president of the National Assembly, declared, "No one can give orders to the nation in assembly." When the comments were repeated, one of the prominent leaders of the French Revolution, Comte de Mirabeau, responded, "Tell those who sent you that we are here by the will of the people, and we will leave only by the force of bayonet." As a result, the National Assembly refused to leave the hall. When the king was informed about their disobedience to follow his order, he reluctantly allowed them to stay. Over the next few days, there were many clergymen and nobles who decided to change the political fraction. The National Assembly became larger and more numerous. Surprisingly, but one of the most active supporters of the National Assembly was Louis-Philippe Joseph, Duc d'Orléans, the cousin of the King Louis XVI, who found himself among the delegates who decided to join newly formed body. It would be reasonable to assume that at that time King Louis XVI believed that the course of action leading to the revolution could still be prevented by using force. In Paris, there were regularly stationed Royal Guards regiments, previously deployed during hunger riots in the city. However, the situation changed significantly with the convening of the Estates General and the establishment of the National Assembly. The French Guards, sympathetic to the Third Estate, began to refuse public order duties with records of desertions from the regiments. Recognizing the French Guards' shifting allegiance and their unreliability as a source of power, King Louis XVI faced a dilemma. Assessing the state of affairs, the king made a decision to make the next concession. On June the 27th, he ordered the clerical and noble orders to join the National Assembly.